I thought he was sexting someone at work. I thought I was protecting the team. But when I exposed him, I destroyed the only safe line of communication he had left, with his daughter in witness protection. It started with the smirks. Little smiles, barely there, flashing across Ethan's face during slow afternoons in the office. I'd catch them out of the corner of my eye. He'd be hunched over his phone, thumbs moving fast, lips curving ever so slightly. Not laughing, not reacting to memes, just grinning like a man with secrets. And I noticed something else. He always tilted his screen away when anyone walked by. He had his Slack notifications disabled. And he kept his personal phone tucked between two monitors, shielded but accessible. For a guy in his mid-40s, divorced, quiet, and notoriously private, it didn't add up. Ethan wasn't a creep exactly, but he was too contained. And in our team of overly friendly extroverts, that kind of energy stands out. So I started paying attention. At first, I told myself it was harmless curiosity, office gossip, a little side plot to get through the tedium of Q3 reports. But then he started taking long lunches again, and disappearing into stairwells with his phone, and texting during meetings with a tiny smile that made me want to throw a stapler. The worst part, people started noticing. I think Ethan's seeing someone, Priya from marketing whispered one day. He's got that look. And I don't know what possessed me, but I said, it's probably someone here. She laughed, you think. I shrugged. He's always on his phone, always smiling like he's getting away with something. That night, I went home and couldn't stop thinking about it. I thought about the time he said, no thanks, to our team's Valentine's cookie exchange. The time he declined to sign the group birthday card. The time he barely looked at Erin from HR when she made a joke during lunch. Too private, I thought again, too clean. That's the thing about suspicion, it starts like a whisper. Then it loops and loops until it sounds like a fact. So I made a decision. I was going to find out who he was texting. For the team. For workplace transparency. For the truth. The next day, I waited until Ethan left for one of his cryptic lunch walks. I walked by his desk, slowly, pretending to check the calendar on the wall behind him. His personal phone was right there, tucked between his monitors, screen dark. I didn't touch it. But I looked. The lock screen was visible. And there it was, a preview of a message. It read, "Can't talk long. Cameras are off for 10 minutes. I miss you too, I'm okay." My heart started pounding. What the hell? I walked away quickly, adrenaline buzzing, mind spinning. Can't talk long. Cameras are off. I'm okay. This wasn't just an affair. This was shady. And once again, suspicion started screaming in my head. What kind of relationship happens in hiding like that? Affair, secret romance, married lover, illicit something. And in an office setting. That meant scandal. Or worse, harassment. I told myself I had no choice. I told myself someone needed to know. So I made another decision. One that would unravel everything. I didn't plan to dig deep. I planned to nudge HR into asking questions. But instead, I opened a door I couldn't close. I didn't go to HR right away. I wanted to be sure, which is just code for, I wanted more. More evidence, more context, more of whatever would make me feel justified in taking this further. So I started watching Ethan more closely. He wasn't careless, but he wasn't paranoid either, which made it worse. He didn't act guilty, just quiet, composed. Every time he got a message, he would glance at his phone, type something short, and slip it back into place. Always short, always quick. Sometimes, he'd leave his desk for 10 or 15 minutes right after texting. Once, he came back with red eyes. That's when I thought maybe it's not an affair, maybe it's something else, drugs. The idea flashed through my mind for a moment, then vanished. No, not Ethan. He drank tea, he ate almonds. He corrected people's grammar on project timelines. Still, something was wrong. So I crossed the line. I stayed late one evening, on purpose, pretended to forget my badge and waited in the parking lot until Ethan exited the building. Then, I doubled back and went inside while security was busy with a delivery truck. I knew his computer would be locked, but I also knew our office cloud stored certain document previews in shared cache, even personal stuff, if opened through Chrome. I told myself it was a gray area. I told myself he was hiding something that could compromise us all. I opened his browser. Checked recent history. One link caught my eye. Encryptedmsk now/send equals Charlie. The page was already logged out, nothing visible. But he had been using an encrypted messaging app. Why? I screenshotted the address bar and emailed it to myself. Just in case. The next morning, I walked into HR. Melissa, the same HR manager who always looked one decaf latte away from a breakdown, blinked when she saw me. Everything okay? I think so, I said, but I wanted to flag something off the record. I was careful. I never said the word affair. I just said Ethan was regularly stepping away to use personal devices and receiving suspicious messages that referenced surveillance and secrecy. Melissa took notes. Her face didn't move. When I mentioned the encrypted app, she finally looked up. "And how exactly do you know that?" she asked. I hesitated. His screen lit up once when he left it unattended. I caught a glimpse. "A half-lie." She nodded. "We'll look into it." That was all. No follow-up questions. No immediate action. I left her office feeling like I'd planted a seed. Something was going to happen. I'd done the right thing. Right. The tension grew over the next 2 days. Ethan didn't act any different, but I was watching him differently now. His calm made me nervous. Like maybe he knew I'd said something. Maybe he wanted me to notice, wanted someone to intervene. I checked with Priya. "You ever notice Ethan sneaking off?" She shrugged. "He's always been weird." Like secretive. I mean, he's a grown man who eats boiled eggs and listens to classical music without headphones. That's a kind of secretive. I didn't laugh. Because the weight of what I'd done was starting to grow teeth. Then it happened. On a Wednesday morning, around 10:17 a.m., 2 people from corporate security walked into the office. Not HR. Not it. Security. They went straight to Ethan's desk. Quiet words, a hand gesture. Ethan stood up, no resistance. He didn't even look surprised. I watched him go, heart thudding, skin cold. What had I done? Word spread fast. People whispered in the kitchen. What did he do? Did he get fired? Was it legal stuff? Is it about that girl he used to talk about? That made me freeze. What girl? I found Erin from HR later and asked, as casually as I could, did Ethan have a daughter or something? She gave me a strange look. You do know. Know what? He's been trying to get custody back for years. His daughter's in witness protection. The mom was abusive. CPS removed her and sealed everything. He's only allowed to contact her through encrypted portals. Government-approved, anonymous relay stuff. She lives with a host family. I couldn't speak. Erin kept talking. I only know because I helped approve the legal privacy forms when he was hired. Poor guy had to sign 100 disclosures. Can't even store her name on his phone. The room tilted. I felt sick. All those messages. All those suspicious smiles. They weren't to a mistress. They were to his child. And I had handed him to corporate like he was a threat. He wasn't guilty, I was, and now the walls were closing in. I spent the rest of that day in a haze. Meetings blurred together. My hands shook every time I opened an email, half expecting a subject line that read urgent, HR follow-up. I couldn't look anyone in the eye, especially not Priya, who had once gleefully joined my Ethan watch banter, or Aaron, who now knew the truth and didn't say a word about why I was asking questions. But I knew she knew. I could feel it. Like a light had been switched on in a room where I'd been pretending not to see the dust. I had crossed a line. No, multiple. I had accused a man of something dark based on nothing but posture, glances, and assumptions. I had violated privacy, lied to HR, weaponized workplace gossip, and all of it had detonated at the worst possible time. Because that afternoon, Melissa called me into her office. Again. She was already seated when I entered, this time with a second woman beside her, someone from legal. "Close the door," Melissa said. I did. They didn't ask how I was. They didn't offer coffee or polite small talk. They just slid a manila folder across the desk toward me. Inside was a printed screenshot. My email to myself, the one with Ethan's encrypted message address. "Busted. We've conducted an internal audit," said the legal rep, whose badge said her name was C. Alvarez. "Your browsing history and access logs indicate you viewed confidential information from Mr. Holt's workstation on the evening of the 14th. I opened my mouth. But Melissa cut in. "This isn't a criminal inquiry. No one's calling the police, but there are very real privacy violations here." "I didn't touch anything," I whispered. "I didn't go through his messages, I just saw something and thought." "That it was your job to investigate," Alvarez raised an eyebrow. "Were you assigned to HR, compliance, internal affairs?" "No, but..." "You made a personal decision to escalate a situation without context," Melissa said, quieter now. "And the result was a massive disruption of one of our most protected employees." I blinked, protected. "Yes," she said. "Ethan Holt disclosed his circumstances when he was hired. He was approved through our high-risk vetting process due to his unique family situation. You were not supposed to have any knowledge of that." "I did," I blurted. "I didn't know." "But you acted like you did," Alvarez said, "and that's the problem." "They didn't fire me. But they didn't let me off either. I was given a written disciplinary notice for inappropriate access to colleague information, breach of digital privacy expectations, and failure to follow internal reporting procedures. My bonus slashed. My reputation burned. But worst of all, they made me write a formal apology. To Ethan. I stared at the blank Word document that evening, hands hovering over the keyboard, the taste of shame thick in my throat. What do you say to a man you tried to expose, only to discover he was hiding the most human thing in the world? Love. I started, stopped, rewrote, deleted. And finally I wrote, Ethan, I owe you an apology that extends far beyond company policy. I made assumptions based on fragments and shadows, and in doing so, I failed you not just as a coworker, but as a person. I betrayed the trust that comes with shared space, and I will carry that responsibility forward. I understand now that your privacy wasn't a shield for wrongdoing, but a lifeline for love. I am deeply sorry. I sent it. No reply came. And that's when I realized I didn't deserve one. The next week, Ethan returned to the office. Not a word about his absence. He walked past me in the hallway calm, expressionless, polite. But not cold. Just untouchable. And honestly, that was worse than if he had cursed me out. He wasn't angry. He had outgrown my ability to matter. The gossip died off fast. Melissa had issued a vague all-staff note about digital ethics and reaffirming personal boundaries. It sounded harmless. Most people forgot about the Ethan drama within days. But not me. Because every time I opened a shared doc and saw his initials in the top right corner, I remembered. Every time he politely declined a lunch invite, I remembered. Every time I looked at my own reflection in the bathroom mirror, I saw the face of someone who had once thought she was exposing something dark, and instead had extinguished the only light someone else had left. I thought my actions had revealed a hidden scandal, but the only thing I exposed was my own ignorance, and I did it under fluorescent lighting in front of everyone. The days after Ethan returned were quiet. He came in, logged on, did his job, logged out. No drama, no tension. But there was a shift in how people treated him. Colleagues who once joked about his robot energy now gave him space. Not avoidance, respectful distance. Even the usual Slack noise around him dulled. It wasn't pity. It was restraint. As if someone had finally told them what I should have known all along. He was carrying something heavy. And me. I'd tried to pry it open like it was office tea. One morning, about a week after his return, I stepped into the break room to find him already there. It was just us. He was pouring hot water into a tea bag, his usual peppermint. He glanced over, then back to his mug. I almost turned around and walked out. But instead, I took a breath. Ethan. He looked up. I just want to say I meant what I wrote in the email, truly. He nodded once, okay. Silence. I lingered, wanting more. But he didn't owe me that. He didn't owe me anything. And the fact that I'd spent weeks trying to read into every smile, every departure, every microexpression, that said more about me than it ever did about him. I left the break room without saying another word. It was the most honest thing I'd done in months. That week, Melissa followed up with a reputation management meeting. Corporate lingo for, you messed up, but we don't want to fire you yet. She suggested I take a bias awareness workshop and step away from any interdepartmental collaborations involving Ethan for the time being. Translation: you're on thin ice. Even my closest teammates, Priya, Aaron, started keeping conversations shorter. Nobody was cruel. They just stopped engaging like I was one of them. And then something unexpected happened. A package showed up at my desk. No return label, just my name handwritten. Inside was a small hardcover book. Invisible Girls: The Cost of Protection. A memoir by a woman who had grown up in and out of witness protection after escaping an abusive home. There was a sticky note on the first page. Next time, ask what someone's hiding from, not what they're hiding. No signature. But I knew. It was Ethan. Not forgiveness. Not a peace offering. Just a reminder of what it costs to stay silent and what it takes to stay alive. And suddenly, the phrase, I miss you too, I'm okay, played in my head like a thunderclap. How many of those messages had I almost intercepted? How close had I come to cutting her off from the only parent she trusted? And I'd done it with a smug sense of justice. Like I was the hero. Like I had seen something wrong. When all I'd seen was love written in code. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the entire timeline backward like a movie reel in reverse. What if I had just asked Ethan weeks ago? What if I had knocked on his door and said, hey, I saw something strange. Are you okay? What if I had just chosen curiosity over suspicion? But I hadn't. Because suspicion feels righteous. And righteousness rarely leaves room for empathy. The next morning, I started the bias awareness course. One line stood out in bold. When we assume, we remove the dignity of others and inflate our own. I bookmarked it. Then I printed it out and taped it above my desk. Not as a redemption arc, but as a warning. Because I wasn't the hero in this story. And now everyone knew it. I wanted to be the one who caught a problem. Instead, I became the problem, and no apology could unstitch the damage. The hardest part wasn't the cold shoulders. It wasn't the HR documentation, the forced trainings, or the reduction in responsibilities. It was existing in the space I'd violated. Every day I walked into that office was a reminder. I had weaponized suspicion and gotten it wrong. Every keyboard click felt louder. Every silence more loaded. And every time Ethan entered a room, I felt like I was trying not to flinch at my own reflection. But he never wavered. He did his job with the same precision, the same composure. He made no grand shows of forgiveness. No passive-aggressive jabs. No anything. Just moved forward. And maybe that's what made it worse. Because I wanted him to scream. To yell. To call me out. To react. But he didn't. He simply outgrew the wound. A month passed. My team changed. Not officially, but functionally. Projects I used to lead were passed to Priya. Slack channels that once had my name in pinned messages now didn't include me at all. Even casual chats in the hallway felt curated, trimmed. I was no longer trusted. I had become the reason people checked twice before speaking. Then one day, our company had a culture reset town hall. The kind where leadership tried to slap a new mission statement on top of festering morale issues. The VP stood on stage, full of energy and corporate optimism. This quarter is all about rebuilding trust, owning mistakes, leading with humility. It should have sounded like just another buzzword speech. But it felt personal. And then came the mic moment. An anonymous cue and a submission popped on screen. What does accountability look like when someone's mistake causes real harm to a colleague? The room shifted. I knew. Everyone did. I saw Melissa in the front row stiffen. The VP answered with some jargon about restorative systems and inclusive reflection, but no one really heard her. Because we were all thinking the same thing. It's easy to talk about healing. It's harder to sit next to the person who caused the wound. And stay human. That afternoon, I made a decision. Not to fix things. I couldn't. But to finally do something without ego attached. I requested a one-on-one meeting with Melissa. When I sat down, she looked tired, like she'd expected another plea for leniency. I'm not here to complain, I said. I'm here to ask for a transfer. She blinked. To a new team. To a new location. I've been looking at openings in our Denver branch. I saw one in documentation support. It's junior to what I'm doing now, but I think it's where I should be. She looked at me for a long time, then nodded slowly. That's not an easy choice. It's the right one, I said. Because staying would have been about saving face. Leaving quietly was about restoring space. Space for Ethan. Space for the team. And space for me to figure out who I was without the noise of my own guilt. When the approval came in 2 weeks later, no one said much. A few polite goodbyes. A generic team farewell card. No cupcakes, no slideshow, no office lunch. And that felt right. The day I packed my things, I came in early. I wanted to leave before most people arrived. My desk was half cleared when I heard a voice behind me. You don't have to rush. I turned. Ethan. Just standing there. I opened my mouth, but he raised a hand gently. I won't keep you, he said. Just wanted to say I got your second letter. I froze. I never sent. I know, he said, but I read it anyway. He nodded toward the book on my desk. Invisible Girls. Still with a sticky note inside. I read that book when my daughter was first moved. Thought I'd never hear from her again. Then one day I did, just one message, said, I'm okay, miss you. He looked at me, not angry, not sad. Just real. Thanks for not deleting it. My throat tightened. I was wrong about you, I said. He gave the faintest smile. I know. Then he left. No drama. No final speech. Just truth like a breath, here and gone. I thought I could erase the damage by walking away. But redemption doesn't live in silence. It lives in the choices we make when no one is watching. Denver was quieter. Literally. The office was smaller, less open concept, and more task-oriented. No standing desks. No kombucha tap in the break room. No Slack threads with hundreds of emojis on every announcement. It was peaceful, which was exactly what I needed. At first, I kept my head down, did the work, answered emails, delivered copy edits, didn't try to bond. I was determined not to repeat my mistake. But the quiet eventually started to feel lonely. Not punishing, just hollow. Because guilt, when left unprocessed, doesn't fade, it ferments. So I made a decision. One more. And this time, not out of impulse, or shame, or reputation-saving desperation, but out of accountability. I reached out to HR in Denver and asked about internal initiatives related to trauma-informed workplaces. They referred me to a woman named Vanessa, a mid-level manager who also ran a Safe Spaces microgroup for employees navigating difficult personal histories, especially those dealing with abuse, custody, and witness protection complications. When I met her, I told her everything. Not the HR-approved version. The real one. She didn't flinch, didn't judge. She just nodded and said, "You should join us." So I did. At first, I just listened. To women who had to use burner phones to stay in contact with their siblings. To men who hadn't seen their kids in years because they'd testified against the wrong person. To people who knew what it meant to protect someone in silence and how painful it could be to have that silence misinterpreted. Like I had. One woman named Carmen said something that stuck with me. The people who think we're secretive don't understand, we're just trying to keep someone else safe. The most dangerous people I've ever met were the ones who demanded explanations without earning the right to hear them. It was a punch to the ribs. Because I'd been exactly that kind of person. And Ethan had never owed me an explanation. Months passed. I settled into the new rhythm. I even built new relationships, quiet ones, based on shared values instead of shared gossip. And one day, a new internal policy draft circulated from the legal team. It proposed stricter digital privacy protections for employees with special circumstances, especially those involved in state-monitored custody or witness protection cases. At the bottom of the draft, I saw a note. Sourced from prior incident, original source redacted. But I knew. My mistake had become a catalyst for change. Not in the way I wanted, but in the way it needed to. One evening, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. A blurry picture of a drawing on a fridge. Crayon stick figures, a sun. And 2 words underneath, in a child's handwriting. "Hi, Dad." No context. No sender name. But I knew. It was Ethan. No caption, no message. Just a single moment he had every right to keep private. And yet, he shared it anyway. Not as forgiveness, but as grace. I didn't reply. Because some things aren't about closure. Some things are about witnessing quietly, the way I should have from the start. And maybe, just maybe, that was my redemption. You don't get to rewrite your past, but you do get to choose what you carry forward and who you become because of it. There are 2 versions of me now. The one who sat in her old office, scanning a man's phone screen like a watchdog for decency, convinced that suspicion was a moral compass. And the one who now knows. Suspicion without humility is just a mirror of your own fear. I didn't ruin Ethan's life, but I shook the foundation of something fragile. And it took me months to admit. I wasn't curious because I cared. I was curious because I craved drama. I thought I could be the person who saved the office from scandal. Instead, I became the reason a man had to relive his trauma in front of strangers. That's the thing about secrets. Sometimes they protect people. Sometimes they are the safety net. And sometimes the greatest kindness you can offer someone is to let them have what you do not understand. I think about his daughter sometimes. I think about the coded texts, the brief windows of safety, the courage it must take to say, "I'm okay," when the world has already shattered around you. I think about what it means to be a parent who can't show up physically, but who still shows up emotionally. And how easy it is to judge that kind of love when it doesn't fit our expectations. But mostly, I think about how many people I've probably misjudged in my life. How often I filled in gaps with my own worst assumptions. How many of those gut feelings were just projections of fear or insecurity or boredom dressed up as morality. There's a saying I came across in a book Vanessa gave me. Truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it just survives. That line sits in a frame on my new desk now. Because surviving quietly is what Ethan did. And choosing not to defend himself, choosing not to destroy me back. That was the loudest truth I'd ever witnessed. I still work at the Denver office. I've been promoted once, not because I'm trying to climb again, but because I finally understand what leadership is. It's not being the loudest. It's not being the first to call out wrongs. It's not about catching people in mistakes. It's about creating space for people to be seen without interrogation. It's about leading with grace, not judgment. As for Ethan, I haven't heard from him since that fridge drawing. But I don't need to. That message wasn't for me. It was for a girl in hiding and a father still learning how to reach her. And I'm just grateful I stopped standing in the way. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.